Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and that's right, day number 6 of training camp is in the books, and it didn't bring with it a lot of action on the football field. There was some things we'll get into, but the big news is the injuries, and it seems like every single day, as a San Francisco 49er fan, that is the case. It's substation talk. It's this guy. It's that guy's out for the season. Whether it's Ricky Pearsall, whether it's Stribling, whether it's the plethora of Niner players currently on the sideline hindered by some type of ailment. This is an everyday, constantly growing list of players that is not only hurting the team, it could hurt and hinder their ability to train and practice as of day 7 of training camp. But it is becoming, once again, like last year and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, a reoccurring storyline. And I'm not going to dive into how to fix it. I don't know how to do that. The training staff, I think, needs to be overhauled or rehauled. Again, Dustin Perry, who has been the lead trainer for the last couple of years, probably needs to go, and I'm not one to advocate for someone to get fired, but when things don't go well in any other facet of life, when your department continues to have the worst results, usually a change is afoot. Yet San Francisco continues to allow the Niners training staff to just be there, same old, business as usual. And what I mean by that is that the Niners have a very long list of injuries that was already long on day 5 and day 4 and day 3, and it's gotten even longer. So as of day 6 of training camp, when you're listening and watching to this, it'll be on day 7 of training camp. Maybe some of this will change. I hope it does after an off day on August 4th, but we already know this, that Malik Mustafa is not practicing still with the hamstring injury. Jordan James has fractured ribs. He's not practicing. Keon White has an adductor injury. He's not practicing. Badarian Lowe's not practicing. Cam Sample's not practicing. That doesn't include players like Nick Bosa, who is limited in how much he can do still, or at least they're being coy with him throughout practice. Kaelon Williams is still injured, not practicing in any capacity outside of some small sideline stuff. But now you can add on to that Mike Evans, who has a quad strain, according to the team and according to NFL Network's and now ESPN's Ian Rappaport. It's reportedly minor. It's not that big of a deal. I think we are all smart enough to know when you're dealing with a 33-year-old wide receiver that has a quad strain on a team that has watched quad strains, hamstring strains, calf strains literally cost someone their entire season, even if it is a minor injury, and Mike Evans was doing stationary work on the sideline on day 6, there's every reason to be concerned, on top of the age stuff, on top of the substation that lingers in the background, like, the Grim Reaper meme of him going door to door of like, which Niner player does he get next? That's what it feels like. And again, I'm not going to sit here and complain about the EMF waves and the substation. That's not my specialty. That's not what I do. But Mike Evans is now not practicing on day 6. I hope that changes for day 7, just so we can have a little bit more comfort that it is a minor quad strain. And even if it is minor, having him not practice the majority of the days might be best for a player of his age and a player you desperately have to have healthy to find any semblance of a playoff run on a roster that is hinging on veteran players playing the majority of the season. Continuing, though, running back Kaelon Black, after leaving day 5 of training camp with a lower body injury, we have learned it was an adductor, and he did not practice on day 6. Then Stribling missed his second day of practice due to a hamstring strain. This is not, again, said to be serious, but when you miss 2 days of practice, maybe his return is upcoming on day 7. But within the negativity of more players being added to the injury list and not practicing, there is some good news, kinda. And what I mean by that is a lot of guys are on the sideline preparing to return, if that is good news. Mike Evans again was doing stationary work on the sideline, catching over the shoulder catches. Well, that makes sense. Catching the ball over the shoulder, not moving, not running routes in any capacity in street clothes. So take of that what you will. Stribling was doing some sprinting, some light jogging on the sideline, also in street clothes. So again, maybe some good news there. Christian Kirk is nearing his training camp debut, nursing a calf injury. He's probably going to come back in the next week or so. At least that's my assumption. Grayson Holden, he who on the sideline doing some more drills. He was on the sideline for day 5 as well. So back-to-back days of sideline drills, an off day on the 4th, and maybe the 5th will mark his debut, if you will, of training camp. Then Isaac Grundo and Mike Williams both doing drills on the sideline, and CJ West and Romello Height were back at practice. So a lot of injury news, unfortunately. It just kind of is the name of the game now with the San Francisco 49ers. We'll get into the details of training camp. We'll get into the good, the questionable, if you want to call it that, of training camp day 6. But first, want to remind you guys to follow us on social media. If you can, like, share, and subscribe to the show on the audio podcasting platforms. Leave us that 5-star review. And if you want to watch your 2026 San Francisco 49ers or any other sporting event / concert, you are going to want to use SeatGeek.com. They are the best ticketing app in the country, dare I say in the world. And you can get yourself $20 off your purchase by using promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. We live in an expensive world. Going to games, going to concerts are very expensive, especially if you have families involved. You want to save a little bit of money. You want to maybe look at it and go, you know what, I don't mind dropping a couple $100 as long as I can save 20 along the way. If that's what you're thinking, use that promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and save yourself some money and hopefully have a grand old time at the ballpark this summer and maybe even this winter if you see San Francisco play this season. Okay, we do have some news on Ricky Pearsall we'll get into later on in the show. We also have some Kyle Shanahan discussion to be had, but you guys came here for training camp discussion. You guys came here for what's happening at Levi Stadium, or at least next to it, at the SAP Training Center, and I'm going to bring it to you right here, right now on the show. One small note at training camp, with the Niners having seemingly every edge rusher on the sideline. We discussed that after last practice. They have been tinkering with the idea, or at least having Jaden Duggar fill in at edge rusher. Big dude, big wingspan. The guy can get it done in a lot of ways. He played safeties, played linebacker. Now San Francisco is at least toying with the idea of having him play somewhat of a defensive end role. He only did it during individual drills, so he wasn't doing it during team drills, which makes sense. They aren't going to be relying on him in any large way in 2026 of being an edge rusher, but just knowing that he has that build that he does. If you can move that guy around, maybe he can drop in coverage at times, playing on the defensive line, something I'm sure you'll see Romello Height do a couple times this year throughout the season. It just makes you more versatile. It gives the opposing offenses different looks they have to deal with. So although this seems more so out of need, I do like that San Francisco is trying new things. Raheem Morris is trying new things early on in training camp. Now, this does ring a bell because the reason this is happening is not just because San Francisco wants to do new things and they're exploring all their options. No, they don't have enough players to do 1v1s against the offensive line. So there is some intrigue, but also like a cold reminder of, well, yeah, you're all banged up. So you got to do what you can with that and take the good with the bad with the San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of good, let's talk about some good. And the good of practice was that of quarterback Brock Purdy, 14 for 21 on the day. Much more conservative outing from Brock. There was a couple missed throws, mainly one to Jake Tonges, that maybe would have been a touchdown, at least a deep shot downfield. Then he had Tonges for a touchdown that was broken up by Jair Brown, but a very nice ball from Purdy nonetheless. Look, when I made the comment earlier in the show about the absences of a lot of their wide receivers and injured players actively hindering the offense and defense, it's because of things like this. Purdy's throwing to Deebo Samuel, who isn't a route runner. He's throwing to Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins and DeMarcus Robinson, guys that are on the roster bubble, gonna get cut. Maybe it could be a surprise, but not proven in any way. And the Niners essentially don't have their top three wide receivers. Deebo, by default, is one of those guys, being receiver 3 now, but really he's receiver number 4 if Ricky Pearsall, Stribling, and Evans were healthy. So they're hurting for some bodies. They're hurting for some wide receivers to get back out there. And I think you are seeing Brock Purdy's play align with the absences of a lot of his route running receivers or guys that he believes can get open and, or at least trusts over the middle. Brock's bread and butter is, touch passes over the middle above the outstretched linebackers and perfect placement. Well, if you can't do that in practice because the guys you have out there either aren't trusted, are small in Cowan's case, or maybe that's not part of their skill set. In Jordan Watkins' case, you do run yourself into some trouble. So, again, a good day from Brock, but a much more quiet, reserved day from Brock simply because of the personnel around him. So, hoping some guys can get healthy because you do want to see Brock pushing the defense, testing the defense, and making both sides of the football better in the process. There was more good, though, from Jake Tonges, who is running with the twos. I would assume that's occurring because the Niners want to have a blocking tight end be the number 1 as you try to orchestrate the running game. That's right, Luke Farrell is running with the ones. I don't love that with Kittle off the field. I'm hoping that when he returns, Luke Farrell drops back to tight end 3, and even then, Luke Farrell and Jake Tonges should be splitting reps 60-40 in favor of Tonges, if not more in favor of Tonges, but had a good day. Very good day, used his body. He's flashing the receiving ability, proving can be a weapon in this offense. We saw it last year. The dude is a receiver playing tight end. He has good hands. He has good feet. Outside of one big fumble in a playoff game that at the end of the day didn't matter much. Jake Tonges, I think, and was rewarded with the money, I think can show he can be a good weapon in this offense. And even with Kaelon back, whatever he does return, like Jake Tonges should find his way onto the football field, whether that's the big slot, whether that's lined out wide. He can give you something more than just George Kittle's backup. But I wish he wasn't playing tight end 2 behind Luke Farrell, because Luke Farrell just sucks. He's not good in any way. We'll get into more of him later because Nick Martin made him look rather foolish on day number 6. Moving along then to the defense quickly here. Romello Height, who returned from an injury. He's back at practice, a guy that's been on and off the field a lot. He had the cramps and then he came back after. It's just like, stop scaring us, Romello. Just be out there. But he is showing some durability, I guess you can say. Battle-tested. The scars are on display for the world to see. But he had one really good rep amongst many, but one that stood out was one against Trent Williams, who a couple days ago, Trent had one practice rep during 11-on-11s, took one rep. He essentially kind of shrugged off Height and his efforts to get around him, And we kind of all laughed and said, "Welcome to the NFL, Rook." Whereas in day 6, Height adapting, using his speed, his biggest weapon in his arsenal, was bendy, got around Trent Williams' shoulder, and wouldn't have gotten a sack, but would have gotten a pressure and maybe force a quarterback into something else in a game situation. So you are seeing Height, even though there are good snaps, good plays, good outcomes. When you're playing a Hall of Fame left tackle, the first battle between those two was, yeah, the HOF is going to win that more often than not, and he did. But now he bounces back and gets a second chance and gets the win. So good on Height, shows you that there is the ability to beat the top tackles in football still. Also makes Trent better. Also makes him realize, okay, maybe I shouldn't take this young guy who's on my team, but other young guys across the NFL lightly. Trent doesn't need that reminder, but it's always nice to see early in August young players pushing veterans that have been around for 15 years that are guaranteed gold jackets. So good there from Height in his return after another injury scare during training camp. Already mentioned Luke Farrell and what Nick Martin did to him. One, I'll say this: Nick Martin has been literally everywhere. It's really hard not to reap his praises through almost every practice. The dude is, we've mentioned plenty of times, shot out of a cannon, chicken with the head cut off. This dude runs around like he just lives, breathes football. He's a Tasmanian devil. Like he's the guy you'd see in college or in high school walking around with the pigskin in his hand because he just loved football so much. He's the guy that I think maybe is one of the more athletic defensive players you have on a defense that does have a lot of athletic defensive players. And he laid out Luke Farrell like Luke Farrell was a dog treat after my dog has gone for a walk. And to give you some context, after we take our dog for a walk here at the Bennett house, my dog is begging, whining, he just wants a treat so bad, putting the paws in the hand, saying, okay, I'm doing everything you want me to do. Give me the treat. That's what Nick Martin is like on the football field. He's like, I'm doing everything you want me to do. Give me a starting job. Give me the football. And in this case, laying out and essentially pancaking Luke Farrell, making right now the tight end 1, for whatever reason, on the 49ers look like you were signed to be a blocking tight end. Well, here's Nick Martin, a year 2 linebacker, putting you in the dirt. So good on Nick Martin and bad on Luke Farrell, which is not a rare sight to see in red and gold. Moving along further back into the back 7 of the defense, into the secondary. When I told you that the secondary has been the best component, the best unit on the football field between both teams, between both sides of the football, offense and defense, I was not exaggerating. I was not being hyperbolic. They have been fantastic. It just every single day they're making plays, even when the offense, gets their licks in, right? The defense finds a way to either come out on top or even things out when practice is over. And the big standouts of that room, while there have been a lot of struggles at safety, mainly Jair Brown, and without Mustafa being out there, Siegel has been hit or miss. Siegel's usually there, but it's almost like he doesn't have the anticipation or the IQ yet. Whereas you have Renardo Green and Deommodore Lenoir, who are making plays every single time the ball is thrown to them, whether it's a PBU, whether it's literally shutting down wide receivers and coverage. These guys have been stickier than the stickum that kid wears in Little Giants. This is Gorilla Glue. This is, crazy glue. They have been insane. I think this is the most impressive start for 2 Niner starting cornerbacks since the 2023 season that had Lenoir, who is breaking out still, coming into fruition as who we know he is to be today. Then Charvarius Ward, who Green was drafted to replace. Now, within that discussion, within that comment of them locking down wide receivers and everything, the detractors, those that maybe are trying to not get too overhyped about this, well, they're playing against Jordan Watkins and Demarcus Robinson. Sterling, you said yourself, Purdy's throwing to Deebo Samuel. He can't run routes. Jacob Cowing. Like, okay, you're right. Will Pauling. Like, I understand the names aren't exactly there or haven't been there on a consistent rate throughout training camp, but even when they have been there, Pearsall, for the 2 days he was out there, Deshaun Stribling, when he was on a heater to begin his training camp sessions, and then Mike Evans, who outside of this practice was out there for the majority of the time, they were still giving those guys fits. And so one that gets me hyped up that you are seeing the growth of Renardo Green. We've talked about this plenty of times during the offseason about, well, the Niners may trade Renardo Green. I never bought that. I never believed that for 1 second, simply because he is their most gifted, physically, cornerback on the entire team. Green, to me, screamed standout breakout from Raheem Morris, who gushed about him. And so far through only 6 days, I'm not shocked about the returns they're seeing in a new scheme, in some capacity, in having a defensive coordinator that lives and breathes secondary play. I'm not shocked. If you've listened to the show for a long time and watched the show for a long time, I talked about how hands-on Steve Wilks was with the secondary and what that did for that room in 2023. It's the reason why you saw that group have the best year they've had under Kyle Shanahan, was because Steve Wilks was a fantastic defensive backs coach. And I think Raheem Morris, not a one-for-one comparison, but there are some comparisons. There are some similarities between those two people because they favor the secondary, and a lot of their attention is focused on coverages. And so far, you're seeing the benefits of that. Now, can you pair that with a ferocious pass rush? Well, you got to get all your guys back. You got to get Nick Bosa and Hyde and Michael back out there together, and Osa Digazua. We've yet to see a full frontal attack from this Niners front seven to pair with how good the secondary's been. But on their own, they've been really, really, really good. The Niners this year and what they didn't really address starting cornerback. They have Lenoir, they have Green. They brought in some veterans behind them on the off chance one of those guys goes down or they struggle. Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones, Ephesians Prysock come to mind. But I think the confidence they have in those two guys is really high, and it should be. That said, the Niners, because they are so thin at wide receiver, or at least currently are with Evans and Stribling being out, and Christian Kirk not practicing once yet throughout training camp, it may be early to say this, but maybe more so around cutdown day when teams are thinking about having to cut, a player they'd rather trade. I think the San Francisco 49ers should call the New England Patriots, and they should either ask or discuss Kayshon Boutte or Demario Pop Douglas, two guys I think fit San Francisco pretty well, two guys I think Shanahan would love to have in the room, two guys that aren't going to have these massive contractual, values following them from New England to San Francisco. And I think the Niners could equally part ways with somebody that maybe they aren't too fond of keeping, but realize there's value behind. Whether it is a Tatum Bethune or a Darrell Luter Jr. or somebody along those lines that are on the roster bubble, I can see San Francisco saying, you know what, we're pretty thin here. We can use another body. And that could be if somebody else goes down. It could be if maybe Jordan Watkins doesn't take that step you want to see. He's shown some flashes so far, some things that, pique your interest, that make your eyes open up and you go, okay, there's Jordan Watkins. But right now it's really been the Stribling, Evans, and Demarcus Robinson show. Then Deebo Samuel's name brings a lot of attention to it, but it's only 4 guys. And if you want that 5th or 6th guy, I would call the Patriots and at least open the door, make an initial phone call, and just say, we're interested. what will it take? Because as the days go by and teams get to cut down day, that price could drop if it is, let's say, higher than a fifth or fourth round draft pick. You can get one of those guys for a sixth or a seventh to just give you a 1-year patch job to your receiver room. That to me is what I would do. But right now it's been kind of the Niners don't have a single wide receiver with Evans and Stribling out that can match up against their defensive backs with the ones. So I think something should be done. We'll see if it happens in the near future, but cut down day probably makes the most sense. Two more notes on the defensive back room. Two guys that no one's really talking about, but I think offer a lot of upside for San Francisco, that being Ephesians Prysock and Jacob Robinson. Got a couple of PBUs in practice on August 3rd. So what was that, Monday? Two guys I think, Prysock may be more so a practice squad player, kind of buried behind veteran talent on the depth chart year one. Bigger body guys, got some speed, so you can see the makeup is there and what Raheem Morris likes out of his cornerbacks. But I think Jacob Robinson should probably be a safety. I would love to see him go play safety. He's got ball hawking ability. And I think if Siegel continues to be there but not anticipate enough, not make enough plays, and Mustafa's injury lingers, and really even if it doesn't, just get yourself another body in that room to maybe get you the ball back, maybe give you some prospects of this guy could be something at the end of the day. He's a okay cornerback. There are some plays you go, well, that's nice. Robinson did, before breaking his forearm during last year's training camp, did show a little bit of something. I think moving him to safety may benefit him and the 49ers. If anything, he can be a backup safety, but there's a reason you're not hearing about Ashton Davis a lot. There's a reason you're not hearing much about Marquise Siegel. The Niners need help back there. Now, if Mustafa comes back and does what you believe he can do at his peak talents, then maybe that changes. But even then, a lot of question marks in that room. I think San Francisco should be trying to find and move puzzle pieces that, even if right now the positional group says cornerback, why can't you be a safety? Because they're really thin there. I think Jacob Robinson is a player I would earmark for that transition, but nevertheless, a nice PBU from him on Monday's practice. Let's move on to off the field stuff, because we have unfortunately been, and I say we as a collective, the cards that Ricky Pearsall's not going to play in 2026. And I'm not going to harp on, the injury itself. This is more insight into the recovery, because I think a lot of us, including myself, are frustrated with how things went, the timeline of events leading to the need for surgery, and that also coincides with the uncertain future of his recovery. And we did get some information via Eric Branch of the San Francisco Chronicle, who talked to Dr. Prem Ramkumar. He works with athletes for the X Games and things like that. So you're somebody who is rather accomplished in working with athletes. And he gave us more of a general insight to what a PCL what a PCL repairment surgery looks like, and what that rehab will be like for Pearsall, and really what could be further serious repercussions for the surgery. So the injury itself, according to Ram Kumar, is actually really rare. An isolated PCL injury is one of the hardest injuries to predict for NFL athletes. In fact, Kumar says that it's so rare that you can't even predict Ricky Pearsall returns to his pre-injury self in 2027. With modern medicine, an ACL, an MCL, a broken bone, a fractured rib, you can predict you're going to make a full recovery. You're going to be back, by this time next year. And even if there is, some getting into back into football shape issues or kind of getting your footing back on the field, you're going to be health wise fine. That's not the case for this surgery. From what it sounded like, it didn't seem like anything else was damaged inside Pearsall's knee. So it's strictly an isolated PCL injury, which makes it like much harder to determine what Pearsall's future looks like, not just in the NFL, but personally. Um, Dr. Ramkumar mentions there's been one other significant and or prominent athlete to have an isolated PCL surgery, that being the NBA's Steven Adams. Now, Steven Adams came back, and while you're doing a lot of running in the NBA back and forth up the court, and there is some cutting involved, he's a post player. He's not, playing towards the key or playing on the perimeter and cutting inside. He isn't a slashing scorer. He's a center. There isn't too much involved when it comes to stress on the PCL, whereas Pearsall's running routes and cutting and falling down, getting tackled. So there is more of a threat to further injury for a player like Pearsall, on top of surgery already being so rare or the injury being so rare in itself. Now, I was someone that was pretty adamant and outspoken about why did it take so long to get surgery. You're telling me that, they didn't, know this was occurring. The swelling is random. It's brand new. Like, the timeline it's frustrating. It's confusing. Like, this can't be all it is. It can't be as cut and dry of, I was healthy all off season and now I have 2 days of practice and now I'm out for the season and need, career altering PCL surgery. Ramkumar does defend the 49ers by stating that surgery is usually only an option after months, if not years, of failed non-surgical treatment. So according to the doctors, that the Niners did play this thing right. The Niners did do right by the player, even if there was swelling. If Ramkumar is to be trusted, which I don't know why he wouldn't be, surgery isn't usual after months, if not years of failed non-surgical treatment. So maybe Pearsall was getting surgery or treatment all off season. Maybe he wasn't, experiencing swelling all off season until training camp. So I guess in this case, I can give San Francisco somewhat of a break and ease off of the why surgery wasn't on the table earlier and everything. Simply because, it seems like the experts are saying that, it can take years until you finally decide to have surgery. And it may be a pain tolerance thing. It could be a stability thing. I know Pearsall has openly talked about when he first hurt his knee about there being a lack of stability there. And I think he actually collided with a defensive back. Like, they fell down together. Then I think the next day he was like, yeah, something's wrong. So I'm not saying that was the case or the, reasoning behind the need for surgery, but it does, I think, also indicate that how fragile that PCL injury is and was. That even if Pearsall happened to make it through training camp A-OK, week one practice or snap one, all it takes is one hit. All it takes is one cut. All it takes is a harsh fall to the turf or the grass at Levi Stadium or in Australia, and gonzo. Same thing that happened to him against Titans last year. Hurt his PCL, came back, gets a hip drop tackle, and then it was like, this is a nightmare scenario for them. So it seems like surgery, whether it was now or later, was always going to likely be the outcome for him. It just sucks that it happened after believing that he was past it, or at least in some ways past it. So you can give San Francisco a break. Now, Ramkumar also adds to this that having PCL surgery doesn't exactly fix the problem or provide further stability to that ligament compared to letting it heal by itself or in a non-surgical way. So it's not like surgery is the magic fix-all, end-all, be-all like it would be for a torn ACL or an MCL. Ricky Pearsall can walk into the doctor's office for surgery pre-op. Oh, my knee hurts. It's swollen. I need to have surgery, and walk out, maybe not having swelling, but experiencing instability and experiencing problems. So while you can make the case that's the same for any surgery, I push back and say it's such a rare surgery to have. The analytics behind it don't really offer too much positivity in the recovery of a player. But on top of that, there's no promise Pearsall comes back feeling any better than he did. His knee may be, a couple centimeters smaller because swelling has gone after surgery, but there is no promise that Pearsall ever comes back and feels the same way he did pre-injury. Now, Ram Kumar also said that he would not clear an athlete for at least 9 months after the operation. So you can do yourself some math there. You are looking at maybe until May, June, depending on when Pearsall gets his surgery, which I think should happen in the next few weeks or so, until Pearsall comes back. So May or June. That means we're in the exact same spot he was, the team was, this offseason. He has a PCL injury. How does he look? And you're going to get this easing in process, and you're going to hear the OTA stories, training camp stories of Pearsall this and Pearsall that, and he'll be badgered with questions. And again, because there is so much concern behind it, you're kind of in the same place. You're concerned, you're worried, you're scared for a player like him. And, reading all this stuff, it doesn't seem like the odds are exactly in Ricky Pearsall's favor, or at least he is facing a very tall hill to climb up to be able to play football again in 2027. Now, this last part is more so of like the worst case scenario. It's surgery, right? Anything can happen. Bad things happen all the time during surgeries. At high school, a long time ago, one of my teachers, his wife had throat surgery. And I don't know what they were doing in there, but she was having throat surgery. And they left a utensil inside of her throat and paralyzed her. Now, that is obviously an error that occurred by a doctor being somewhat negligent and forgetting of, I let the scalpel in your throat. My bad. And that's not how most surgeries go. Most doctors are really good at their job. Most surgeons are on top of their game, but anything can go wrong. The human body is made up in an intricate way, and there's arteries all over the place. And according to Dr. Ramkumar, the way they're going to have to do the surgery to repair the PCL is they're going to have to drill behind his knee to get in there, move things around, repair it, then get out of there. But drilling in behind his knee, there is the popliteal artery back there. And if there's any damage to that artery, Pearsall could lose his leg. Like, that's why I was so scared when the report came out. It's why I've been telling and saying it's career-threatening. Because not only is the recovery process so rigorous, not only is the optics not great for Pearsall's hopeful return in 2027, there's no promise he's the same guy if he ever comes back. And again, he isn't a bigger body receiver. He's not a physical guy. If this was Juwan Jennings, I'd probably feel a little different about this, right? Where Juwan's running the 4.6, 4.7, Pearsall runs a 4.3. He needs to have the ability to cut and break and be smooth and crisp in his routes, and that may not be there once he gets back. But on top of that, getting to that point where you can question, how's the recovery? How's the rehab? If that doctor drills in the wrong place, if he's a half a centimeter off, 1 millimeter off, you're talking about, oh my God, internal bleeding. We have to go to the next level, and Pearsall can lose a leg. Now, again, that's the worst case scenario. It is, what you fear the most and is not likely the outcome of what's going to happen. I believe that they're going to find the right doctor and get things in order, and Pearsall will come out on the other side, hopefully better, with a better PCL and a more stable knee. But all that to say, this is a scary thing, not just after surgery. The literal surgery is scary because anything can go wrong. It can also go right, but it can also go wrong. And so it's a big thing. I can see why San Francisco, knowing now the intricacies of the surgery, wanted to wait, wanted to see how things went, because this is like the last, thing you ever want to sign up for. And this is like break the glass in case of emergency. We have to do this because this isn't working. So, it sucks. I hope that kind of gives you more insight into what Pearsall faces ahead and the fear of that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, it's Jover. It's over for Pearsall. I'll wait and see how he responds. I believe Pearsall is a pretty gritty person. He's already almost died once and came back and played. And I think a surgery he can push through. But, just the Niners finding another wide receiver after 2026 for the long term, to me, is now a top priority again. And you can look back at 2024. It was like, in 2 short years, the offensive plan has changed mightily, or at least how it was supposed to look has completely altered. They spent $120 million on a wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk and drafted a guy at pick 31. And you're looking at neither one of those guys maybe ever being a San Francisco 49er again, or at least playing from ever again, by as soon as 2027. So wishing Pearsall the best. Hope to God that doctor knows where he's drilling, because good dude, good person, but it's scary. So I'm hoping that insight maybe opened your eyes to some things, certainly changed my tune on me being so staunch about these timelines don't make sense and it doesn't add up when it came to why they waited for surgery so long. So hoping that helped you like it helped me. That said, the last thing we got to talk about is Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan was on hand for practice on Monday, was on hand for about roughly an hour and a half of it. So he's staying out there longer and longer and longer. But Matt Barrows of The Athletic pointed this out, and he said that the Niners announced their media schedule. I got it working for the station at 95.7 The Game, and he's right. Shanahan is not scheduled to talk at all this week, which is shocking considering that he can be at practice in the hot sun with the loud music. He can watch film. He can be in meetings during his recovery, which, I mean, hey man, do what you got to do. Like, I'd rather you be comfortable, Shanahan be comfortable and be smart and be safe, than having to discuss with the media what's going on. But the media has only heard from him once this offseason. And it was pertaining to the car accident, not Niner related, not any questions. And that was a impromptu, I'm texting reporters numbers I got from the PR team, meet me in my office. So that lends me to believe, or at least I think lends to a discussion of, is Kyle going to be ready by week 1? Now, the Niners, I think, opened the preseason on August 13th, 20th, then 27th, and then they have, I think, a week off or so. Then they're in Australia against the Rams early in September. The preseason games itself, usually Kubiak calls plays anyways. I'm not worried about that, but we are now 2 weeks into training camp. If Shanahan continues to not talk to the media, and that is indicative of his health, are there concerns that he's not going to be there by week 1 against the Rams? I'm not there just yet. But as every week goes by, and we'll see, I think, around Monday or Tuesday of next week, what the media schedule looks like, if his name isn't on there leading into the first preseason game, then you start to worry. Then you start to question. Now, there are still 3 weeks even after the first preseason game to wonder if he'll be there against the Rams in Australia. But it just, worth noting, worth mentioning that it's been 2 weeks. You're going into what will be, I think, training camps day 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then at that point, fans aren't there, and it's just media, and a lot of those practices are actually closed at times. There's no cameras around. You can't take pictures. You're just there observing things for the first few days after the preseason games. And at that point, you're in the season. So we'll see with what Kyle Shanahan and how his recovery goes. But I thought it was interesting that he's also already scheduled not to talk to the media for a second straight week, and just had my mind wandering. I'm not saying he's not going to be there, but at least, it perked me up. No, that's odd. Shanahan's out there for a lot of practices. He's doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, but interesting that he's not going to be out there. Maybe in his mind, he's like, look, I want to just do football. All the other things I don't want to deal with. They're not important to me, which makes sense. So I'm not criticizing him. Just saw the schedule, saw Barris pointed out and said, oh, that's kind of interesting that he's not going to talk to the media just yet. With all that in mind, that'll do it for day number 6 of 49ers training camp. Day 7, when you're listening and watching to this, is happening today. We'll hopefully react to that when that is over and give you more insight into what happened at Levi Stadium once again. Preseason's almost here, folks. I think we have about, when you're seeing this, 8 days, 7 days, a week or so until preseason week 1. Then there's joint practices ahead on top of that. So a lot more Niner action on the way. Training camp is right now in the thick of things. Guys are getting hurt, guys are getting healthy, and we're having some fun covering it. So if you guys can, follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS, that's SeatGeek.com, to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. That'll do it. My name is Sterling Bennett, telling you to like, share, and subscribe to the show on the audio podcasting platforms. Leave us that 5-star review. And until next time, as always, enjoy your week and stay faithful.